Good afternoon. It is good to have you once again on the Pundits on Flip TV. I'm Christian Chukwu. With me is an activist, a well-known interface in our program. On our program, his name is Mr. Matthew Obianese. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We are looking at the elections and how the current policy is going to affect the elections come February 25th. How Nigerians are grappling with the situation, how the governors, the state governors, with exclusive rights to the CBN and the federal government, how they are handling the Naira policy crisis and how it's going to affect the elections. The INEC has come out to say that the elections will be conducted, it will be credible. They have all the need to conduct this election. So we are going to look at the various range of topics. But let's start with the Naira policy and how the governors, the position of the governors in respect to the Naira policy. What do you think?
Are you talking about the governors that approached Supreme Court?
Let's look at the first four governors. We have the Kano State governor, we have the Zamfara, we have the Kogi, and we have the Ondo State governor. They all took the federal government to Supreme Court on the Naira policy.
I think for me, it was not proper for those governors through their respective attorney generals to have approached the Supreme Court.
It was not proper for them?
Yes. The reason is not far-fetched. Because you have a situation where CBN is not maintaining a rigid position.
Okay.
CBN have said that their policy is not cast on stone, that is subject to be reviewed. And we have seen CBN review the policy about 2 or 3 times. And most especially, Mr. President was quoted to have said that it should be given a 7 days window within which to address the scarcity. But the way it stands, we already have a pronouncement by Supreme Court that restrained the CBN.
No, let's leave the pronouncement by Supreme Court now. Let's look at the position of the federal government, the position of the central bank governor, and the position of, let's say, these aggrieved governors. Let's look at their position, then we look at the position of the law, and we look at the position. If I say position of Supreme Court now, you say it is the same law.
No, the problem is there is no way you can look at the position of the governors that went to courts vis-a-vis the position of the CBN and Mr. President without making reference to the action and the pronouncement of the court.
Okay.
The reason is this. As it stands today, the hand of Mr. President and the CBN is tied already by that judgment. It means until you vacate that order or until the Supreme Court resolve the substantive issue, which they say the hearing will be on 15th.
Yeah, on 15th.
It means the federal government, through Mr. President and CBN, cannot make any further action, cannot take any further action. Because any action you take going forward will be deemed disobeying the court order. And it have capacity of leading to anarchy. Because the way it stands today, the position of the Supreme Court is that the deadline of 10th is invalid.
Okay.
And if the federal government go forward to say the deadline is valid, you have a situation where some Nigerians will be obeying the Supreme Court, some Nigerians will be obeying the federal government,
the CBN,
and it will lead to
CBN came out
anarchy.
emphatically and said that the deadline stands. That is through Emefiele. That's why you see banks, we don't have banks dispensing whatever, receiving the old Naira notes.
I have not seen anywhere CBN said.
There's a broadcast, we'll put it up, a broadcast where CBN said, you know, they are not joining in the suit with the federal government. It was the federal government they took.
I've not seen that, but I'm aware that CBN, the Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, who represents federal government in litigation, did say, notwithstanding of their position, because their position is that they are appealing the judgment or rather the order, but notwithstanding their position that they are going to abide by the ruling or the order of the courts.
Okay.
So I don't see CBN maintaining a divergent position from the position of federal government. Though you are saying you have a report where CBN is quoted to have
because
said...
you can see the banks now. The banks are not...
It's not about me seeing the banks. It's about whether there is authenticity to what you said. It's about whether...
It is about... This judgment is about the federal government. The federal government was taken to court, not the CBN. You understand what I'm saying? No, that you didn't understand.
I understand what you are saying,
yes.
But I disagree
so now,
with
if
you
are
on the
not
ground
in
that...
a litigation that is in the court, how would you be made to obey any other...
Okay, let me explain it like this. You may argue that CBN was not joined in the suit, and that is the position of the Attorney General of the Federation, that CBN is an indispensable party in this case. And as such, CBN, which is an indispensable party to this case, is not joining the suit. He is not challenging those three governors, asking the court to determine in the circumstance where CBN as an indispensable party is not joining the suit, whether those three governors have the power to invoke the jurisdiction of the court in that regard. That is one of the relief he's asking the court to resolve. He's equally asking the Supreme Court to decide whether they have the jurisdiction, the power to entertain that case. But all these are relief he's seeking. And relief does not translate into court order. The Supreme Court is the highest court of the land.
And it must be obeyed. Yeah.
Yes. The position of
we are looking at the position of the different parties.
Nobody should have any position as far as there is a judgment or an order of Supreme Court.
But banks are not dispensing.
Then they are doing that in disobedience to order of the court.
So what should the court now do now that the banks
the government have a way of enforcing judgment of the court?
It is the federal government that will enforce what the court has said.
What I'm trying to say in essence is the banks are institutions recognized by the federal government. They are incorporated in the Nigerian Corporate Affairs Commission. So they have a body that can regulate their conduct, that can conduct to order. So you cannot tell me that as an institution as a bank in Nigeria, that you are not bound by the rule of the court. It's not about it's not about your position or your opinion with respect to the judgment. It's about we are in a constitutional democracy. It's about the fact that the Supreme Court has given judgment, and that judgment has not been set aside. It's not about my own personal opinion. If you ask me about my opinion, I told you ab initio that I am not comfortable with those three governors approaching Supreme Court. I'm even of the view that order should be set aside within the possible shortest time to pave way for the CBN and the federal government to tinker with the policy and review it further.
Okay, let's move on. We're also going to be looking at the central bank's capacity of printing new Naira notes. We got a report which the CBN had debunked. Central bank has debunked that it was being said that they don't have the capacity to print what we need at this point in time.
To be quite honest with you, a section of the media reported that Nigerian printing and minting press lack capacity. And they portray it as a statement that came from the CBN governor when he went to the meeting of Security Council. But CBN have come out to debunk that position. And again, if you look at the angle or the media where this information came from, it is this angle from where they try to blackmail CBN ab initio. Okay. The same angle from where they find it more comfortable to tag the CBN governor a terrorism financier rather than criticizing the policy with superior argument. It is when they now see that it is no longer fashionable to tag the CBN, to blackmail the CBN governor and the CBN, they now started using criticism. Now, if the CBN governor, the CBN as a body, as an organization have come out to say, this was not what the submission of CBN governor at that meeting. It means that section of the media were trying to create a narrative to advance an opinion, to discredit the policy, to achieve what they couldn't achieve ab initio.
Okay.
So for me, I think the Nigerians should take CBN for what CBN have come out to say.
So why don't we have enough of this Naira notes in circulation?
That is the question we should be asking, and that is why we should encourage CBN to do everything within their power to ensure that, one, if they know they don't have sufficient new Naira notes, they should recirculate some of the old Naira notes that have been mopped up. And if they know that they have sufficient new Naira notes that like they have tried to make Nigerians believe, they should go and start apprehending, arresting, contravening those Nigerians who are hoarding or diverting the Naira notes. I quite agree to the submission of CBN that the new Naira note is being hoarded or diverted, because you can see some video evidences, pictorial evidences of how Nigerians are spraying this Naira in parties. We have seen the allegation that came from the Kaduna State governor, who said a particular governor is having or withdrew 500 million Naira of the new Naira notes. So, to that extent, one can confidently say that this new Naira note, some of the bank officials are hoarding or diverting it. We cannot forget in a hurry of the operation manager of a commercial bank in Abuja, who was arrested by EFCC of hoarding 29 million Naira, new Naira note in the bank vault. So for me, like I always say, CBN was not proactive. If they were proactive enough, they would have started the policy by integrating the EFCC, ICPC, DSS into the operation of distribution.
Initially, that is at the initial
yes, because we now have a situation where you are now being you are having a reactionary approach to fighting it. So if they had have synergy with the anti-graft agencies from the beginning, they would have been able to nip these sharp practices in the bud. Okay. But going forward, I think the government should have the capacity to do a district investigation, know who and who is hoarding the new Naira notes, whether in their homes, in their offices, then go ahead and arrest them, make a show of them, prosecute them, so that it will act as deterrent to others.
We have never had one person prosecuted.
That is why I'm calling on the authorities to do it.
Okay, somebody said that the politicians hoarding, in quotes, the old Naira notes would never return the money until the policy is defeated.
It's an allegation. I don't know to the extent,
because 100 days is enough for you to return.
And what I'm saying is this: to an extent, I agree with you, and I equally note that Buba Galadima, who was a member of CPC, who is currently a chieftain of the NNPP, alleged recently that I think a governor or so is hoarding 2 billion of the old Naira notes. And again, if you look at the data released by Central Bank, where they said before this policy that you had about 3.2 trillion in circulation. Out of that total amount, you had about 2.7 trillion outside the banking system. And after the first phase of the policy, that they were able to recover about 1.9 trillion, which represents 75% of the 2.7 trillion, leaving about 900 billion outside the banking system. So for me, and since the CBN governor made that statement up to now, they would have recovered more. So it means the money outside the banking system have been depleted so much. And I think at this stage, the CBN, the anti-graft agencies, and the police and DSS should be bold enough to confront any individual, no matter how highly placed, that they have credible information,
even
actionable information.
Even governors?
Yes, of course.
The DSS will confront the sitting governor.
What I'm saying is this: the security details that go with the governors are being seconded from Abuja. From the office of the NSA, you can control all security apparatus in Nigeria. The IG can control the police details of the governor. The director of DSS from Abuja, even from the state, can control the DSS that is attached to the governor. the military, the GOC in an area can control the military that work with the governor. What am I trying to say in essence? That if there is an actionable intelligence that the governor is hoarding maybe the old or new Naira note outside what is allowed by law, nothing prevents the authorities from invading, I wouldn't call it invasion anyway, from going ahead to investigate and unravel whether it's true, and if it's true, nothing stop them from asking all the security details to stand down while they go there to recover such fund, such money.
Let's look at the insinuation that this policy was targeted at politicians, that some politicians were the target of the CBN policy. Would you say that is true?
I wouldn't say anybody is targeted. I would rather say it is a policy that sought to improve on our economy. Even if we end up being antithetical to the ambition of anyone, I think it's coincidental. Because if you look at what CBN said, that you make monetary policy is not effective because a good number of the money in circulation is not under the control of CBN. And whatever, I don't think any government will allow that. So for me, it's not as if I've not heard people who may have given an insinuation that the policy is targeted at the ambition or not. But I don't want to join issue with such notion. Because for me, I think if anyone is looking at the policy targeted at him, he should look at the fact that using money to buy votes is not part of an electoral process.
CBN said that if receiving the old Naira note will enhance kidnapping and vote buying. So do you think that vote buying in that context is a future of some politicians and
no, vote buying is a crime.
So one of the policy is also meant to curb vote buying?
What I'm saying in essence is this. Vote buying is not part of our electoral process. It's a crime. And if anyone is planning to indulge in it, and there's a policy that curtails it, that checkmates it, for me, I think I'm in for it.
So you are saying that the policy is
no, it's not as if the policy may have been designed for such. But if coincidentally the policy checkmates such, I think I'm in for it.
Okay, let's look at how the elections will be affected by the Naira policies. Many persons are saying that since there's no money, they are not going to participate in the election. It is having a negative effect on the empathy of Nigerians. Are
you saying decision not to vote or
because of the hardship,
because of the hardship, or not having money to
the hardship is not having money. Nigerian voters, because of the hardship, many are backing down, especially.
Is it based on speculation or is something you have on good authority?
I have on good authority.
Is it something you can avail? Is it something you can avail me of your source?
I can avail you.
Even here, even right now. Even now on this program.
Like the central bank governor.
Even now, I don't know what you mean by that, Mr. Christian.
DSS person.
I don't know. I'm not a DSS person. I don't know. I'm not impersonating anybody. I'm not a DSS person.
Even today, you know your brother Felix says that.
Who is my brother?
Your brother is Felix. They are planning on not even. I went for this INEC accreditation BVS exercise, and I had to speak to some people. They said, when there is no money, why are you coming out to vote for elections? Don't you think that the policy is having a negative?
Is this something you have a recorded interview?
You have a recorded interview.
Is this something you can bring on this program?
Yes, we can bring it on the program. That is, if you are coming next time, bring it.
Okay, it's not something you can bring on this program now. Bring it at this because don't forget that the Bible says, out of the mouth of his weakness is established.
Witness established.
So for you to establish it.
If you are looking for such evidences, they are everywhere. And I'm going to get one for you.
Okay.
It is bringing voter party, the Naira policy, the hardship of Nigerians.
No, if you are talking about the scarcity and the hardship that come with it,
that's what I'm saying.
The hardship is, no one is exempted from it. There's a different thing to say is making people to form opinion whether to vote or not.
Yeah.
Personally, I equally have my own fair share of the hardship. I must tell you that to assess, even if you have money in your account, to assess it, you have to pay heavily. Before now, in my area, it was 500 for 5,000. But as I speak to you, as of this morning, it's 1,000 for 5,000.
5,000. That means it has increased.
Yes. So everybody is facing, even to buy a bag of sachet of water, I have to make transfer as little as 500. Because otherwise you end up spending 600 instead of 500, or in some cases 700
So I'm saying
instead
that
of 500.
the policies have a negative effect
on everybody. But it's a different thing to say. It's a different thing to say.
On the elections.
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
It's a different thing to say whether the hardship occasioned by the policy is making people to form opinion whether not to vote or not, whether to vote or not. I quite understand and agree that I've seen some candidate, or particularly a candidate, who is playing victim.
You say he's playing victim. That is your opinion.
I say he's playing victim because this is a policy
so you are making a serious allegation here.
It's not an allegation.
No,
I've seen a situation where
playing victim is a simple sentence.
Yes, because
he's playing victim, so it's an allegation.
It's not an allegation. It's something.
He's not playing victim.
No, it's something that have been proven that he's playing victim.
He complained.
The reason
you say he's playing victim. That means
playing victim because he's trying to exonerate himself from the policy, and it's a policy of his government. He's a member of the government, a senior citizen of this country, and a chieftain of the ruling party. And as such, he's using it to whip sentiment.
No, you have said another whip sentiment. Now,
yes.
He said the policies are targeted at him. That is what I understand.
You are the one that said that the person said.
By your playing victim.
You are the one that said that.
He said it is his government, he's a part of the government, then he's complaining.
I'm not buying into your argument that it's targeted at anybody.
Okay.
I may agree that if somebody is saying it's affecting his ambition, that is coincidental.
You say he's playing victim. So explain to us and Nigerians and the world.
What I said when I mean is playing victim is this. I've said it, except you are not careful to listen. Now, there's a policy in place, and we have a government in place. We have a presidential candidate of that same government in power, claiming that the policy is targeted at him, and using it to whip sentiment that it is not the policy.
How do you judge his whipping sentiment?
That is not the policy of even Mr. President.
Okay.
Now, you have a situation where some people are saying, yes, what the candidate is saying is right, meaning it's working for him in some section of in some part of the country. But for me, what I will agree is that this is a policy of the government, and that if somebody says it's targeted at him, and that it means it's coincidental. And I equally agree with you that this policy, it could have come at any time. And it happened that if you look at the world best practice, it's supposed to be between 5 to 8 years. And over 19 years, I don't think Nigerian government through CBN have reviewed or had this policy.
Let's still dwell on the victimization or affecting somebody's ambition to become president of the country. You have the governors like El-Rufai that have said so many things about elements in Aso Rock that are bent on destabilizing the APC.
Yes.
What will you say about that?
What I would say is that you'll find a way to bring El-Rufai on your program.
No, what will you say about his statement? How do you look at the statement?
He's the one that made the allegation. He would have made the allegation should be able to prove.
Is he also playing the victim?
I don't know, but just as Fanika they have alleged that what is it called, Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of PDP, is having clandestine meeting, whether for a coup or so. And as it stands,
like
I understand that DSS have invited him.
Atiku?
No, I mean Fanika.
Okay.
Now, if the governor is alleging, I think the only nothing to prove, or you bring him on this program to substantiate on it.
Okay.
So it's not up to me to start joining issue with him. He's a governor who may have.
Explained to the gallery?
No, he's a governor who may have had access to some classified information that are not privy to. Just like he have said that a particular governor withdrew 500 million of the new Naira notes. He may be privy to some classified information that are not privy to. So the only line on as a journalist to either get one of his aides to bring to your program to substantiate on it.
This thing people talk about journalists, any small thing you will say journalists, investigate. Let's still look at the elements in Aso Rock. Now, the policy, it is confirmed that it does not go down well with some people because according to what you said, they are playing the victim.
They are.
Playing the victim.
I don't think I say they are. I think it is one particular person I mentioned.
Okay, the person is playing the victim.
Yes.
The candidature, it's a joint ticket. So
Yes.
it's safe to also say they.
No, one thing you understand is once the candidate makes a pronouncement, his lieutenants, his acolytes, his supporters start magnifying it, start amplifying it.
Okay.
And before you know, it trickles down the whole society, and everybody will be seeing it.
Okay. There's this the Security Council meeting that was being held. They had an agreement, and they told the federal government that they should at least allow, they are in favor of the policy, they should at least allow the old and new Naira notes be in existence. But there's no statement from the central bank governor, neither the president.
That is where, if you were careful enough, that thing have been addressed here. I've told you ab initio that is why there should be urgent need to vacate that court order. Because the court order in
I've
question...
not finished my statement, but you just, as you brushed it,
because the court
let me allow
statement in question is tying the hand of Mr. President and CBN. I can remember I've said
that's
that.
where I'm going. Is it that they are waiting for...
It's not about waiting. It's not about waiting.
When, on the 15th
because
of February.
people like you will be in a haste to crucify and condemn CBN for flouting court order.
No,
Now, there's a court order.
My position already is that CBN is not part of this suit.
It's not about your position. You are not competent to hold a position. I'm not competent to hold a position.
CBN is not part
it's
of the
about
suit.
what is the position of the law.
That's the fact. When you look at
No, Mr. Christian. If you are looking at litigation, let me tell you this.
Okay.
Let's assume what is at stake. There's no constitutional provision to resolve it.
Okay.
And Supreme Court comes out to make a pronouncement. That judgment of the Supreme Court becomes the law.
What did Supreme Court say? They said they
Supreme
should
Court
not
said
continue.
this. Supreme Court, I told you the other day on bystanders that Supreme Court specifically mentioned CBN, mentioned federal government, mentioned commercial banks in directing them not to comply or go ahead with the 10th deadline. So to that extent, CBN cannot claim that the order was not directed at them or is not bounded by the order. More so as the Attorney General of the Federation.
Law. But I'm saying the suit, they were not part of the suit.
It's a different thing to say they were not part of the suit. Okay, let me tell you this. What of if they, as Attorney General of the Federation, have appealed that judgment, and the Supreme Court maintain that they are correct in their decision, in their order?
Then
what it implies is this: it becomes the law, because it's the highest appellate court of the land. Okay. Any judgment they make have no appeal. Okay. And going forward, people will be referencing that judgment.
Okay. Let's still move on. We have Mr. Matthew Obiano is an activist and also a political juggernaut.
What do you mean by that one?
The Southeast elections, let's look at the Southeast elections. There are videos up and down, IPOB, and a faction of the IPOB is saying that there won't be elections. Another factor is saying that there will be elections. Who do we stand with?
It's not about who do we stand with. It's about enabling environment for people to exercise their franchise.
So who do we stand
with? It's not about who do we stand with.
Because these guys,
get me right,
they have the instrumentality
to
make the environment enabling or not.
That's where I was going.
Okay.
So it's not about who do we, because one, you cannot compel people to go and vote if they have made up their mind not to vote. If there is bound to be voter apathy because of an opinion, an ideology being fronted by somebody and people are buying into it, you cannot go to people's houses and start whipping them whip to come out on election day. you can only do an orientation that you would have done even before now. Then I think the government should have the capacity for that. You know, we have been saying this thing often, frequently, that what makes government legitimate is the ability to have monopoly of coercive power.
Okay.
But unfortunately in Nigeria, Nigerian government is not having that monopoly, and they are sharing that coercive power with some non-state actors. That does explain the reason you have said what you said is a reality. Because we have seen in the past where some people will give an order contrary to government order, enforce it with arms in the southeast, and next time they make such order, people will be wary because they have the capacity to enforce it. So what we are saying is that the government should enforce their own will.
How do they enforce it?
Now, I listened to P2B in one of the interviews. He said it's not that the non-state actors is more formidable than the government, that what is lacking is leadership. I think the government at times play politics with people's life and Nigerians. Because for me, I equally agree with that position. No, I don't believe that any of the non-state actors is more formidable than Nigerian government. If you look and you understand that Nigerian government have comparative advantage over all the non-state actors in terms of who and how you can acquire your arms and ammunition, in terms of comparative advantage over air platforms. There are so many areas they have comparative advantage. So how come non-state actors are beating them in their game? It's lack of leadership.
A result of the ideology.
No, even if you call it ideology, the non-state actors are not living in the moon. They are in the regular society. Do you know how much Nigeria's government spend on DSS, both their personnel and intelligence gathering? You want to tell me that that money is a waste? You have the National Intelligence Agency that gathers intelligence in diaspora, DSS that gather intelligence locally. Even the police have their own arm of intelligence, surveillance.